BIONICLE Legends 9 Shadows in the Sky. Written by Greg Foshti. Recording by Nemetron. Chapter 8. The Makuta regrouped in Antros's cavern. Nemetron had wanted to go after the Toa immediately. After all, they had just destroyed countless samples of his best work. All that was left of the shadow leeches were the ones Chirox had been examining. It would take days, maybe weeks, to get the equipment needed from Destral and regrow the leeches.
"No," said Antros. "Let them think they have won a battle. Let them grow overconfident. It will make their destruction that much sweeter."
Nemetron was in no mood to listen. His labors had been wiped out in an instant by a mere 4 Toa and some idiotic Matoran, and he knew whose fault it was.
"You!"
he screamed, advancing on a frightened Kirop.
"You led them to the hive! This is your failure!"
"Nemetron," snapped Antros.
"Inflict your punishments later. We have a war to win."
"Shadow Matoran," spat Chirox. "They are just as much a waste of space and air as they were before we transformed them. Why do we need to keep any of them alive?"
"You know why,"
Antros answered.
"Matoran of Light have an unusually high potential to become Toa. If that happens, we want them to be our Toa." "Our Toa? Our Matoran? Why not simply give up our dreams of conquest and settle into quiet lives as very tall Turaga?"
The words came from Makuta Icarax, who was standing in a passageway, his tone heavy with contempt. Antros seemed unfazed.
"Good, you've arrived. I have work for you."
Icarax laughed.
"I'm not seeking employment, Antros. You called and I came, but only to tell you I'm not some Rahi for you to order about. I care not at all for you, or the Brotherhood's precious plan."
"Do you care about the Mask of Life?" interrupted Nemetron. "I know its shape. I've seen the carvings, as we all have. I didn't realize it before, but that silent Toa, the one who brought down the hive, he was wearing the Kanohi Ignika." "That makes no sense," said Chirox. 6 Toa Nuva came here. 3 are with us. The others are being hunted by our brothers down below, and none of them are wearing that mask."
"Is that enough to pique your interest, Icarax?"
asked Antros, making no effort to hide the sarcasm in his voice.
"We are going to lay waste to Kardanui, seize the remaining Matoran, and kill the Toa Nuva. Make yourself useful. Find that mysterious Toa and get that mask."
Icarax swung his blade, sparks flying from it as it struck the stone wall.
"Since you ask so nicely, brother, what can I say? I will return with his mask. Shall I bring it with or without the head that wears it?"
Antros turned his back on the warrior, saying simply,
"Amuse yourself."
The final attack began with lightning and shadow. 5 Makuta dived down toward the last surviving village of Kardanui, spreading darkness as they traveled until it hung like a fog over the dwellings of the Matoran. Even the glow of the light vines could be seen only dimly. Then the shroud of shadow was split by forked lightning fired by Icarax and Nemetron, which struck the roofs of the Matoran dwellings. At this point, those 2 Makuta split off from the rest. Antros, Chirox, and Vampra, along with their shadow Matoran, kept on straight for the village. Their job was to use powers that would affect a wide area to keep the Toa Nuva and Matoran penned in their shelter. As Antros summoned the violent storm, Vampra and Chirox blanketed the village with alternating sonic attacks and destructive cyclones. Within a few minutes, virtually no buildings were left standing. Even the light wine barriers were shredded by the assault, leaving nothing to bar the way of the Makuta. Only the underground shelter of the Matoran remained, and that would not last for long. As Nemetron used plasma to melt the exposed roof, Icarax tore the hatch off his hinges. In a matter of moments, it seemed, it would all be over. Icarax walked confidently down the steps into the hatch, ready for anything the Toanuva might hurl at him. Anything, that is, except what he found.
"There is no one here,"
he roared, turning back to the other Makuta.
"It's empty."
Nemetron went to check for himself. He almost shoved Icarex aside before reminding himself how unhealthy that might be. A moment later, he emerged from the shelter, as puzzled as Icarex was enraged. He is right. They're gone.
"Gone where? The swamp?"
wondered Antros, circling high above the ruined village.
"Or have they abandoned Kardanui completely?"
It was Gavla who spotted part of the answer. Perched atop Vampra, she flew over one of the captured villages, seated atop another fallen stalactite. Her keen eyes spotted Shadow Matoran bound with light vines. Alarmed, she told Vampra of her find, and the two flew down to investigate. The first Shadow Matoran freed told the tale.
"The Toanuva, they struck so fast. Said they were going to wait here for your attack."
"Are they still here?" asked Gavla. The Dark Matoran shook his head.
"No. As soon as they saw you heading for the Light Village, they flew off up there."
He pointed in the direction the Makuta had come.
"The caves?"
said Gavla. Vampra struck a nearby outcropping of rock, shattering it. Then he held up one of the pieces. Gavla immediately understood his message.
"The third keystone. While we are here, they and their pathetic Matoran are stealing it."
Vampra vaulted into the sky, Gavla barely hanging on. Quickly, he gathered the other Makuta, and they bolted back for their cavern base. They were halfway there when massive stone missiles began to drop from the ceiling, one almost impaling Nemetron.
"Hey, down there!"
Bohatunuva called from above, even as he wrenched another huge stalactite loose from the cave roof.
"This place has really gone to Karzani since we were here in the old days. Thought it could use a good cleaning up. Starting with you."
Antros fired a blast of heat vision at the sound of Bahatu's voice. Kirop's warning of what was about to happen came too late. Kopaka Nuva rocketed in front of Bahatu, catching the vision blast on an ice shield and reflecting it back. The beam punched through the armor on Antros's shoulder, allowing his precious energy to start leaking out. Snarling, Chirox and Kirop flew toward Bahatu. They had almost reached him when Leiwanuva suddenly swooped down from his perch on the ceiling, firing his skyblaster. The sphere of light struck Kirop, knocking him off Chirox's back. Startled, Chirox slowed for just a second, but it was long enough for Bahatu to bring the stalactite down on him like a club, sending Chirox spiraling down toward the swamp. Leiwanuva's smile of triumph was short-lived. He spotted two Avmatoran flying from the cave, eager to join in the fight. He shouted for them to go back, but it was too late. Icarex trapped them inside a powerful cyclone and then directed it toward the cavern wall.
"Do something!"
shouted Tanma, flying close to Leiwa.
"They'll be killed!"
Leiwa concentrated, creating a whirlwind of his own in the path of Icarex's. The two collided, the Toa's funnel setting up a counterforce that kept Icarex's cyclone from advancing. Shrugging, Icarex suddenly made his vanish, sending the two Matoran inside, plummeting toward the swamp. Kopaka and Solak flew after them. The Toanuva of ice caught one with a chain made of ice, while Solak created a small scoop made of light to snag the other. Unfortunately, the rescue left them vulnerable to attack, and Nemetron didn't miss the opportunity. His power scream ripped through their minds, forcing them to flee or fall. Antros was back in the fight now, swooping down toward the shaken Kopaka. His armored hand crackled as he built up his shattering power. One touch, and the toe of Ice's armor would be fragments. Bohatu spotted the danger. He hefted the stalactite like a spear and threw it at Antros. It struck the Makuta with a glancing blow, knocking him off course. By the time he righted himself, Bohatu and Photok were on him. They flew in ever-tightening circles around him at incredible speed, Bohatu striking him on each pass, delivering 1,000 blows in a matter of seconds. Hovering nearby, Icarex smiled. It was good to see Antros getting pounded. Served him right for not wiping out the Avmator a long time ago. Still, as fun as this was, it was best not to let the Toa Nuva start thinking they could possibly win. Focusing his gravity power, he made Pohatu and Photog too heavy to speed, too heavy to fly, and sent them both falling like stones. Antros plummeted as well.
I guess I forgot not to include my fellow Makuta as a target, Ikarak said to himself, smiling. I suppose after almost 100,000 years, your memory begins to go.
End of Chapter 8.